the idea of teams having linguistic coordinators, that seems real important. That's a job that in the NBA and a lot of our sports really is going to become maybe the future.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast, the global authority on coaching leadership where coaching wisdom meets real talk. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and on today's Wind Up Wednesday edition, segment 1, NBA Week in Review, especially at the All-Star break, and we're going to talk about decoding the NBA's global mindset. In segment 2, we're going to have a discussion about tanking, and people are getting really good at it. And in segment 3, inside the WNBA's high-stakes CBA standoffs, redefining greatness with the class of 2026, and we'll talk about Team USA's women's team as well. Joining us today, our team leader is here. Mike King is here. Our favorite administrator, Robert Abney. Our basketball correspondent, Danny Thompson, is here. And our international correspondent, Coach FD, is with us. So we are at the All-Star break. The last day of the regular season is Sunday, April 12th. That's about 2 months away, give or take. At the halfway point, we've got in the Eastern Conference, the Pistons, the Celtics, the Knicks, Cavs, Raptors, and Sixers in the play-in, if you want to play. The Heat, the Magic, the Hawks, the Hornets. And in the lottery, we've got the Bulls, the Bucks, the Nets, the Wizards, and the Pacers. Hottest team headed into the All-Star break. Cavs, Pistons, Hornets, and Knicks. And we're just going to move to the West because we're going to have a lot of discussion. Number 1's OKC, 2 the Spurs, 3 Denver, 4 Rockets, 5 Lakers, 6 T-Wolves. In the play-in, we've got the Suns, the Warriors, the Blazers, and the Clippers. Lottery-bound Memphis. Last one in Memphis cut the lights off. Dallas, Utah. Come on, Utah. Come on, Utah. Anyway, the Kings and New Orleans, hottest teams, Spurs and the T-Wolves. Well, we want to get to our story of the week because we're going to have enough time when we talk tanking to mention these other teams. Working with English language learners. In academics, in athletics, socio-emotionally, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of English language learners. Robert, Mike King has had a chance to. And basketball as a second language, the NBA is a global game. So there's a lot that goes on with working with students who come from another country and trying to adapt them into the primary language of the country. So you've got superstars like Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama who admit that they think in their native tongue while executing English vocabulary, and you kind of have to rewire your thoughts because basketball is such a fast-moving game. A lot of split-second, decisions have to be made. Also, for many players, English is the only language of basketball. Around the world, sometimes you just use English verbiage. Other times you use the native language verbiage. So I want Francois to kind of lead us off in this discussion, and then we'll go around to our panel to share their thoughts on the NBA's global mindset. But FD, when you saw the notes this week and the work you already do, what do you think about as you see this topic?
Yes, I think, we are in a world of globalization. And when you think about basketball and what the NBA is doing, you have a lot of different players coming in the league. And when you also think about, an international perspective, in France, in Africa, in Serbia, when you're a coach, you have in your team so many different players coming from different culture, and it's very difficult. The way we communicate, the way the education is not the same, the way you communicate is not the same, the prioritize is not the same. And if I can give you a story, when I'm in my team, I'm in coaching in France, Versailles. I have many different culture, and I have also my own culture, my own personality. And the first thing I learned about that is, if you want to be good on that, you have to respect identity of every person. And And that's what I think, some team in the NBA are very good on that, about respecting, the identity of player, of where they come from, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And I think sometimes, even when you talk to somebody, you don't, it's not easy because what is important for you is not important for the other person. But what's great about basketball is that we have a common language. So even if you don't understand, and the identity, you have the common language, and this help you to fix it. But it's not an easy stuff.
All right. So, Robert, I'm going to come to my administrator next because you have a whole school perspective. Within your time, you've worked with multiple languages in the same school, and we're still trying to row the right way. When you saw today's notes in terms of the NBA global mindset, what did you think about?
What this always brings to mind for me is I was one school I was a principal at, and it was a high school, and we were charged with ensuring that our English learners, that we picked up that graduation rate. And we just studied a lot of what we did in terms of how, when kids came in as freshmen versus when they graduated as seniors, where were they tripping themselves up? And there were a couple of things. Number one, and this was one of the most meaningful things of professional development that I've ever seen, just because of how it caught people's attention, is I had one of my EL teachers that, I said, okay, I went through our stuff at the beginning of the meeting, and I said, okay, I'm going to turn it over to Paula, and she's going to run this stuff, and she's got some stuff for you, to show you on our EL kids. And so she came out and she started giving some instructions. I want you need to open up your laptops, go to the Google Classroom. There's a folder in there. In the folder, there's this spreadsheet I want you to open, and then I want you to go to this tab because there's some data there that we need to talk about. And everyone was just staring at her. And they're staring at her because she was doing this whole thing in Spanish. And she let it go for a few minutes, and then she stopped, and she said, "That's what it feels like for your kids every day." And that caught people's attention, right? And those are the things that we have to think about when we're talking about, English learners, in that not only are they having to learn the conversational English that they have to learn just to manage and make their way through, but they also have to learn academic language. So you have to learn, not only are you learning, English, but you're also learning biology in English. And it's the same with basketball. All of the basketball terminology that coaches use, you have to be able to communicate that effectively. Now, what has happened is, because there is an equivalent terminology in English, that's just the basketball, that's just what it is now. But you have to make sure that you are finding ways to effectively communicate with those people for whom English isn't their first language, because if not, you're just going to lose them. And telling them you've got to hedge that screen at the elbow means nothing if they don't understand what hedge means, and they don't understand what a screen is, and they don't understand where the elbow is. None of that does them any good.
Yeah. I want to go to Mike next. So fans, we're going to take you into the inside of our relationship. Mike worked for me. He was our team leader. That's where the gimmick comes from. And he often had to plan, as the team leader, how we were going to meet and exceed expectations for all of our learners, including English language learners. Mike's also a tennis coach. Mike's also a former assistant athletic director. So, Mike, when you saw today's topic on the NBA global mindset, and being an Oklahoma City fan, I think there's like 5 different countries there, what did you think?
Well, it's funny because we had a presentation at work about this after school last week from someone. And when the teacher started not fighting back, but, like giving points of like, well, in the classroom, this is what things look like, right? It kind of is what I'm thinking here. It's like the idea was getting to like explain and describe and all that. And that's what they want us to do. But if you don't know the basic skills, you can't just jump right to explain, right? And in education, we want like that high order thinking, but we always forget about that first stage. And you really need to make sure that everyone's, and it's not just the English language learners. It's everybody in the class needs to learn what the skills are before they're able to use the skills. And I think in everything, we always forget that base that we need to have before we get, before you get to the top. You got to have a strong foundation. So that's kind of where I went, just thinking of that meeting that we just had. But it's important. Every team, and you look at the rosters in the All-Star game. The world roster looks a whole lot better than the other roster. So this is the future, and teams are going to have to figure out strategies to make sure that everyone's on the same level. And I was going through the notes, and the idea of teams having linguistic coordinators, that seems real important. That's a job that in the NBA and a lot of our sports really is going to become maybe the future. Mm-hmm. If you want a gig that's gonna keep you paid, that's
mm-hmm. Well,
all right.
Another academic, term, and it's not just academic; it's also leadership is common language, right? So when everybody talks about something, they're all talking about the same thing, and they all have an understanding, the same understanding of what that thing means. Yes. And with a linguistic coordinator, you're able to, sounds like that would be something that you would be able to translate across all languages, because that way everybody knows what it means when coach says this.
Yes. Right? Common universal educational language. So Danny, you played with international guys on your team and against you. And we've all heard stories of trash talking Americans to foreign players who don't know what they're saying. So they're looking at them like, whatever. What were your thoughts as you saw show notes for today on the NBA global mindset?
Well, the first instance that came to mind was I had a college teammate who was from Croatia. He was a recruit that we got from O'Connell. His name was Christian. And there were moments where we had to kind of break down certain lingo, not necessarily some basketball lingo. There was some lingo that he didn't understand, but he caught on very quickly with the repetition that we had in practice. But there was some times we had to break down, like, heads to screen, meaning we had to show him slide out. When we say head, slide out this way to deter the guard from coming this way. And then there are some moments where, and this is the second part, this person is the second is both coming to play. It was hard sometimes sitting there listening to him talk, and he would talk in his native tongue, and I'd be like, wait, what did he just say? And when he told me, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then there were times playing against guys. The first time I think I saw, we was up at the 5-star camp. I was in high school. This is the summer you were recruiting me. We went to go play a team that came from Turkey. Yep. And they were speaking their native language, and we were sitting there like,
killing you.
like, what are they saying? And the funny thing about it is, no matter how much they spoke, you kind of understood it based off their body language and how they were moving on the basketball court. The game was competitive. We were all going back and forth with each other. So it was a fun atmosphere to deal with. And, playing against international players and have them speak their native language, it's a different experience, because now you have to, as a player, you have to figure out, what do they mean? What are they talking about? When they say this, what are they doing on the floor? So it's like a game within the game that you're playing as the player on the floor when you're playing against international talent. It's something that it's a lot of players are starting to bridge the gap for, especially coming from a guy who's a fan of the Spurs, who was known as, international university in the NBA all them years ago. So it's different. It's something that the league has to get used to, especially American players have to get used to, because now, Mike said it best, that's where the game is going. A lot of international guys are coming over. Like you said, the world roster for the All-Star games, recording this on Sunday, the All-Star games later on this afternoon, that roster is stacked. So now you have to realize you have to deal with American-style players, and you have to learn the international dialect for these players as well.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to mention while I have FD here is our relationship started through the National Basketball Coaches Association, the NABC. And we were a part of a group called the Mentor Circle. And what the Mentor Circle is taking young coaches and matching them with older, established coaches and having a relationship. And just maybe once a month, I think, FD, they said, let's just talk once a month or whatever. And they had someone, FD, who was from France, and it was kind of hard to place him. And I'm like, no, I'll volunteer. So we started talking 5 o'clock in the morning, because Mike knows I get up at the crack of dawn. And that's a decent time for FD and I to talk. And that was maybe 2 years ago. And from there, FD is now not only on the show, but he's one of our key advisors in terms of basketball and development. So it's a lot of time and it's a lot of truth. And that's a pretty big deal. FD, close us out. Any final thoughts you have on the NBA global mindset, or just the work we do together?
Yeah, like I said, it is I think it's always awesome. Like, Danny was saying, when you have the opportunity to speak and learn from different culture. I never played in United States. I didn't play college. But with talking with you, help me to understand the way basketball is doing in this part of the world. Also, open different perspective of how we have to deal relationship, and it is always a blessing and always learning stuff. I think it is always great to have different type of personality, different culture, because you learn a lot. And I always say something that I told you where we were both of us, but since I start working with you, I'm a different coach, different person, different father, and that's what happened is that's what, different culture help you to grow and see different, think differently. So I want to say that it's always a blessing to have different people, different culture on your team.
Yes, indeed. So with that, in segment 2, Mike King is going to lead the tanking conversation. Can't wait for it. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. Hi, everyone. Dr. Keith Adams here. And for over 30 years, I've dedicated my life to helping student athletes succeed, not just on the fields and the courts, but in the classroom and beyond. And that's why I founded the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project understands that finding the balance between academics and athletics is crucial for long-term success. That's why the CKA Save Project offers a range of programs, including personalized consulting, mentorship, and coming in 2027, our innovative Gap Year Basketball Academy, designed to assist both young men and women reach their full potential both on and off the court. I'm incredibly excited to announce that the CK Save Project is now partnering with the Cascade Sports Network. This partnership will allow us the opportunity to amplify our message and reach even more student athletes through the Odd Coaches Podcast and other exciting initiatives. Join the CKA Save Project and the Cascade Sports Network as we empower the next generation of student athletes. Visit CKA on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org to learn more. Let's work together to find the balance and help unlock your potential. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 2. The 2026 takeoff. High stakes, hybrid schemes, and Adam Silver has a, quote, nuclear warning. So Commissioner Adam Silver has labeled the current behavior, quote, worse than in recent memory. And this past week, there were unprecedented fines, $500,000 for the Utah Jazz and $100,000 for the Indiana Pacers, a signal that the league's gentleman agreement to stay competitive have officially collapsed. In addition, there are 3 big-time recruits, big-time freshmen out there, Darren Peterson from Kansas, A.J. DeBonza at BYU, and Cameron Boozer at Duke, and a plethora of others. And Adam Silver is openly discussing taking away draft picks to deal with this tanking situation. Mike King is someone whose favorite team has a wealth of draft picks. So you keep a keen eye on what's going on. What are you thinking about this newfangled new wave taking? Any thoughts, sir?
It's the NBA's fault. They created a system that allows teams to not only trade picks that involve players who are currently in elementary school. That's the system that they've allowed, unlike most every other sport. They also let you decide where those picks will convey and not convey. So when you allow a team to say, like, this pick only goes, you get to keep this pick if you're really, really bad, well, then it gives the team's incentive to be really, really bad. I would love to get the Jazz pick, like around 9 or 10 for OKC. But if I was a fan of the Jazz, I'd be I'm not going to be, hypocritical. If I was a fan of the Jazz, I'd be screaming for them to lose. Why are we going to try and be just bad enough to lose our draft pick in a draft that has like 10 to 15 guys who could actually be pretty good next year? So I'm not mad at the Jazz. What I get mad about is when people try and say the OKC tanked worse than anybody, and they're mad about OKC did not tank worse than anybody. They were good for like 15 years in a row, had 2 bad years, and then they immediately were good again. This OKC team that just won a championship and currently has the best record or second whatever record in the league, they have 1 top 10 pick on the team. So what teams also have to realize is, yes, get as many top draft picks as you can, but that's meaningless. Washington has been bad forever. I don't remember Washington. The last time Washington was good, I might have been in college, and that was like 20 years ago. I'm trying to think, like the Gilbert Arenas era, like I guess Bradley Beal. And when was Washington good? They have a draft pick every year. OKC has Chet was the 2 pick. They had Giddey at 6. Everybody else is not top 10. And Giddey, they traded for a guy who is like an undrafted guy, because that's what you need in the NBA. You need, they got Hartenstein, who I think was either second round or undrafted. They have Wiggins from Maryland, who was the 55th pick in the draft. They got undrafted guys like Dort, who are starters. Like, that's how you build a team. Maybe you get 1 or 2 guys in the draft and you build a team. But these bad teams like the Jazz, who have been bad since Karl Malone, they're always bad because they always want. So it's the NBA's fault. I'm not mad at them for losing this year because that's the system we have, and they're playing within the rules of your stupid system. But then the NBA gets mad at OKC for benching guys that are hurt, and they investigate OKC, who's in first place. They did the same thing last year. They did it this year. You're investing OKC, who's literally winning at a higher clip than anybody else. But then you got this going on for more than half your league. Like, what are you doing? So I just don't understand. I think they're lost in the sauce. They got no idea what's going on.
All right. So before we go to anybody else, we got to go to our administrator to provide levity. Adam Silver's the commissioner. The commissioner not done a very good job in the last year or two. When you see this, Robert, and you hear his proclamation and his warning, what say you, sir?
You're the one who set up these rules in the first place. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And really, if we're honest, they're playing too many games anyway. Because we talk about load management for some of these other players and guys playing 65 out of 82 games. And I mean, they're playing too many games anyway. So if you played 70 games rather than 82, then that limits some of this as well. That being said, I mean, you can't fault teams for understanding the rules and playing the game as the rules are written, right? And if you don't like the way that they're playing, then you need to find a way to change the rules. Because while I don't disagree with the premise that, hey, this is a product that people are paying for, and we want people to have a good product, so we should expect teams to do their best to win at all times, that isn't what the system you've created says they should be doing.
All right. So FD, you're coaching right now. You're hearing about all of this stuff week after week with our conversations. As an international coach, what is your reaction to what you're hearing about with the NBA and taking?
Yeah, different. You will never see that in Europe because the system is different. When you don't win in Europe, you go to the second division, and that's all that. So if you don't win, it's gonna be a big problem because in second division you have less money. And yes, I like Robert say, NBA is a product. People pay to see game, on court, television, and pay a lot of money. So I don't understand, okay, this is the system you have to think because you want to have you want to have high draft pick. But like, Michael say, it's not drafting high that make the team better. It's not only that, I think it's also a culture. When you think about one of my favorite team, the Miami Heat, you have to make sure that every year, even if you're losing, even you have to be a competitive team. So for me, I think, it's on the league to fix it. But, also team has to understand that, it is a business and people pay to see the game. People want to see the team not just win, being competitive. So they have to fix that. They understand that, okay, and if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan and you say you want to come and see a game and you say Giannis, he's not hurt and don't play, it's very difficult to say I will come again see another game because damn, I pay to see my Giannis Antetokounmpo play. I want to see my team, the best player on my team. So yes, it's different in Europe because if you don't win, you're gonna go in the second division. So you have to win every game. But for the NBA, they have to fix it quickly because, I'm as a fan, when you pay, you want to see the best player play, you want to see your team win. And we do that all for fun because it is fun that bring money, that help you to pay salary. So you cannot do that and think that people will not be angry of that.
I love it. That's why we love you, FD. Danny, close us out.
Hey, I want you to
go ahead.
I want you to think
Go
about
ahead.
something for a second because Francois said something that would be absolutely amazing.
Go with it, Robert, because I'm thinking the same thing.
I'm here for it. Imagine if there was relegation in the NBA.
I know.
At the end of the season, we're sending the Kings, the Pelicans, the Wizards, and the Pacers. You guys are being relegated to the G League, and we're gonna bring up the Oklahoma City Blue, Maine,
Delaware Blue Coats.
Delaware.
I'm thinking it. I'm just trying not to go there. You went there. That's why I said, come on in.
I'm here for it. Let's go.
Oh, man. All right, Danny, I'm sorry about that. I hope you weren't thinking the same thing. But yes, I'm all about the penny. Not as high as my brother Mike there, but that would be great. What are you thinking about taking?
I mean, first it's for damn, Robert took my thought away. And I'm like, what if there was relegation to the G League? Because that's the first thing I thought about.
Playing in the Nassau Coliseum. Oh, God, no.
My God, no. From a player standpoint, this is dangerous because you're introducing the culture of losing to young players. Like, you can't have this. Like, Pittsburgh, let's just throw this out there. David Stern is turning over in his grave right now with all this tanking going on because he thought he got rid of this when the Sixers was doing this all those years ago and no one was complaining. And now we have a multitude of teams doing it, and now everyone is upset. The NBA, you started this. You created Frankenstein's monster. You are the issue. Now you have teams who are introducing a culture of losing to young players. That is unheard of. Because as a player, for me, I'm not coming in thinking, oh, we losing? I can't have that. I'm trying to go out and just go balls to the wall and make sure we come out on top and win these games. Even if we are not a good team, I'm not going to sit back and say, I'm like, hey, man, you got to go sit down. I'm not sitting for anything if we losing games. Especially if I know we're in a better place. No. It's not happening. Like, it's crazy that we have gotten to this point now, to the point where we are, I mean, even though $500,000 is I don't know, it's nothing to snip at, but for the league, for most teams, that's chump change at this point. But to the point that where they're trying to throw out fines to stop teams from tanking. It's not going to happen. I've been saying this for a long time. Teams are going to find a way to tank. They're going to find a way within the rules to make it work for them. And people blame it. I don't know why people are looking at OKC sideways. OKC was one of the few things that didn't tank, that built through the draft. They built through player development. They built through trades. That is how you build a team, like Mike stated. Tanking does not do anything but put into a young player's mind, damn, I'm just a loser at this point now. So unless the NBA gets this figured out, this is a problem that is never going to go away.
All right, Mike, close us out, sir. I'll let you start. I'd like you to have the last word on tanking before we hit segment 3.
Hockey added a nice little wrinkle to stop tanking a little bit. You can only have like 2 first-round picks in a 5-year window, something like that. In the NBA, I would make it even. You could have 2 top 5 picks in a 5-year window. So if you're bad enough that you get a 3rd top 5 pick, boom, you lose it. And then all of a sudden, teams start trying a little bit harder. Easy solution.
All right, so fans, in segment 3, we are going to talk about the updated negotiations as time is ticking, and even Adam Silver chimed in on the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast.
Today's student athletes face pro-level challenges without pro-level support. The CKA SAVE project is here to change that. For 16 plus years, Dr. Keith Adams and his team have provided comprehensive academic and athletic support from middle school through post-graduation transitions. NIL guidance, transfer portal navigation, academic coaching, career planning, they've got it covered. The CKA SAVE project. When your future is on the line, experience matters. Learn more at www.ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast. And in segment 3, inside the WNBA's high-stakes CBA standoff. So, fans, we are at the 11th hour. The NBA Commissioner, Adam Silver, has officially labeled the negotiations at the 11th hour. While refusing to set a drop-dead date, he did note that the May 8th opening night is at risk if a deal isn't reached soon to trigger the expansion draft and, wait for it, free agency. So we still got the court deadlock. It's still a fundamental disagreement. Okay, the players' proposals said we like 70% of net revenue after expenses like charter flights and facility upgrades. This would spike to a salary cap of 1.5 to 5.6 million in 2026. The WNBA is holding firm on 30% of gross salary. And you also got things like housing, health, safety, and retirement. So, Danny, when you see all of this, because you are now an expert in the WNBA CBA labor negotiation, what say you?
I'm going to turn to what Brianna Stewart said on her podcast. She's talking to Miles Turner. I think she's starting to realize that I'm starting to see it. The owners are starting to understand what's at stake here. Both sides have had to learn to put on their business hat to come to these negotiations. And now you got the NBA involved saying, hey, I don't want to put on the pressure to get this done. If Adam Silver's like, if I have to, I will, because you're at a point now where the main talking point at this point is the revenue. Everything else the player is asking for, from what I've read on the negotiations, the league is conceding that, and they're trying to get that down pat. Now we're back to revenue sharing. That's where everything is going to stem from this point on. We've been talking about it for weeks now, but every episode is they can't come to a revenue if they don't know what money is being spent on. No one knows what expenses are in the WNBA because they don't release those numbers. And if they do release them, they hide them under other different numbers to the point where you're sitting like, well, damn, this is what's going towards. All right, cool. So the league has to sit back and find out, or the players and so forth, both sides have to come to some middle ground and have to come to the table with some middle number to the point where they can sit back and say, hey, this is good for us. This is good for the league. It's not us losing a lot of money, even though, they're always trying to gain from the losses that they already had for the season before. They got to sit down and get this revenue portion figured out, because if they don't, then you're going to have Alan Silver push the button and say, hey, y'all need to get this done by this date, or there's not going to be a league for this season. It has to get done. And do I think will the owners miss it? No, because they're going to like people saying, they have other businesses and other adventures outside of this. But at the same time, they have to get this done. The owners don't want to continue to lose money on this deal.
All right, Mike, you're my union guy. When you see all of this, what do you think?
I think back to the 94 baseball strike, and I don't think baseball's really recovered since. Took them 4 years to recover back then, and baseball was popular. So if I'm both sides, I'm coming to the table with this has to get done, because we can't go backwards. Like, how long is it going to take to recover if they miss anything? So I'm in the now baseball. They might strike again, and they need to, because there's major issues and people are going to stop watching. WNBA people are starting to watch. It's not the time to stop. They have to get something done now. So I don't care. Both sides need to come to the table with, you need us, we need you. We both need each other. Figure something out, because this would be, it would be a complete disaster.
All right, we're going to pivot. And we're going to talk about the class of 2026 finalists for the NBA Hall of Fame. So a couple players are out there, and I'm going to get our favorite administrators' thoughts on it. You got players like Candace Parker. I don't think anybody's going to have an issue with that. Elena Delle Donne, absolute stud. And then you got Blake Griffin. You got Doc Rivers. And there was a lot of talk about the revival of the Clippers. And I paused, but I'm going to pause. I'm going to let it go. And then you got people like Amari Stoudemire and Mike D'Antoni, along with Marcus Johnson, who I remember, and some collegiate coaches like Mark Few and Kelvin Sampson, and the 1996 women's national team. Shout out to the Martin episode they were on. So, Robert, as you look at the finalists for the 2026 class, any thoughts? Do we have some slam dunks? Do we have some pauses? What do you think?
Well, I think when you look at this list, the things that make you pause, or the people that make you pause, it's not Candace Parker, it's not Elena Delle Donne, it's not Mark Few, it's not Kelvin Sampson, it's not the 96 women's national team that won. That was the first Olympic gold medal, or the first time that you really had pro women in the Olympics. And I remember that team very well. They were a machine, and they were a lot of fun to watch. You're really talking about and I'm even okay with Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, I don't need to have a conversation about Doc Rivers. I'm good. When we get to Blake Griffin, and we get to Mike D'Antoni, and we get to Amari Stoudemire, I mean, when you talk about guys who should be in the Hall of Fame, and I'm not the best person to have that conversation with, I'll admit. However, I'm reasonably conversant in professional basketball, and none of those guys are going to come up in my conversation pretty much at all.
Maybe
Now I'm going to throw something at FD. So Francois, Mike D'Antoni has been very innovative in terms of his 7 seconds or less offense. And although it did not translate into championship wins in the NBA, it has been very influential in Europe. What are your thoughts as you see the Hall of Fame list?
Yes, with your permission, Robert, I will disagree with you about Mike D'Antoni. I agree with you with Blake Griffin. Okay, I'm Harrison Meyer, but Mike D'Antoni has changed basketball game. The way the game is now played. 20 years ago, the game is now more faster. More simple. 5 out, and I think he was the first to do that. Everybody was saying he was crazy, but now everybody do the same. So I think Mike D'Antoni, even he never won an NBA champion. He was in the 2008 Olympic. And if you think about that, this is maybe one of the best team of, the best American team to win the Olympic on offense. The way they was playing, with Jason Kidd, they were just playing amazing basketball, but with the simplicity, I think Mike D'Antoni deserve to, on my point of view, to be in this conversation because he changed the game. Everybody's doing the same thing, and now everybody want to play fast. Everybody want to, just play, this drag screen. And he was the first to do that in the league. And the league was very different when he started to do that.
All right, Mike King, you're looking at that list. And I miss being able to lean back in my chair in the office and say, Mike, what are you thinking? That's what we used to do, folks. Did they get it right, or what do you think?
I think the NBA has a Hall of Good. We talk about other sports and we want to protect the Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame. It's not a Hall of The NBA is not a Hall of Fame. If you look at the Basketball Hall of Fame, has always been a Hall of Good. Not even very good, just good. You just got to be good to be in the Hall of Fame. So all of those, like Blake Griffin was the one pick because he was good in college, and college plays a role. Like, I'm fine with anybody because that's the precedent. Now, if they want to say starting now it's a Hall of Fame, okay, then we can start having some conversations. Blake Griffin dunked the ball. The Clippers they're still waiting on a championship. When I think of the Clippers, the first name that comes to my head now and always is Mike Olowokandi because it's a joke franchise. Wow. So until they win, that's the Clippers to me. I don't care about, we got 50 wins. That doesn't impress me. That doesn't impress me much. So the Clippers are always going to be a joke. Blake Griffin to me is part of that. Yeah, he dunked the ball. Okay. They dunked the ball and they lost. What did they do? They do anything? No, they lost. But to me, based on precedent, again, I'm a social studies. We're going Supreme Court here. You set up this precedent. So that's what we're going to follow. Blake Griffin's a Hall of Famer.
Chris, you. Henry Debbie. This is my life. About 10 years, man. What are you thinking about the Hall of Fame?
I had this conversation about the Hall of Fame a couple of days ago. They were talking about Bill Belichick in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I've always said this. There's only one Hall of Fame that gets it right as far as who gets in and who doesn't. And that's the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, good night, everybody. Tip your waitress.
The only thing that I, in my lifetime, that the Baseball Hall of Fame got wrong is that one person that did not vote Derek Jeter as a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. That is ridiculous to me, but that is another conversation for another day. The Basketball Hall of Fame, we've all said it. It's the Hall of Good or the Hall of Very Good. The only names on this list, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, slam dunk, they're in. I don't have no questions over. We already mentioned it. Candace Parker, Elena Delle Donne, the 96 women's team. I would put Doc Rivers in there because of the championship, and that's the only reason I would do that, because with the coach is different. And then I'm okay with the veterans putting in Marcus Johnson. I don't know much about him, which is a surprise to me. I've heard stories about Marcus Johnson. Apparently, he's one of the better players of his time. So I'm okay with the veterans committee putting him in. I got questions, again, about Blake Griffin. He will get in because of his college career, college player of the year, unanimous first team All-American. Says enough. His pro career is just good. I mean, 5-time All-Pro, 6-time All-Star. Yeah, he won the dunk contest by jumping over the hood of a car. Yay. That's about all the excitement I get. Amari Stoudemire, again, part of that 7 seconds or less offense, he was the original small ball center for those D'Antoni-led Suns. What else did he do after that? Because he was not
Remember, he did have injuries, so during his little window, he was exceptional during that window.
And I'm okay with that because I'm a big proponent of Grant Hill. Grant Hill was on his way before his ankle injury, so I'm okay with that. But Grant Hill has his college career to back up what he did for the little bit of time he had in the NBA career.
I'm trying.
So I'm okay with that. But the injuries always come into play. But what else after that? Even when he was healthy, he was not an all-star. He was not an all-NBA performer. That's it. So if they got to figure out what the credentials are to be considered a Hall of Famer. Because when I look at it, at this point, it's going to get to a point where I'm starting looking, I'm like, who else is going to be a Hall of Famer after a certain amount of time? Because it's going to start looking very, very much like an international Hall of Fame after a certain point, because a lot of these international players are coming in are having the Hall of Fame careers that only maybe LeBron, KD, and Steph will be the last ones where I'm like, surefire dunk Hall of Famers at this point.
All right. So, fans, we're going to wrap up with an introduction to our new women's senior national team. So 5 players are set to make their national team debut in about 3 or 4 weeks. Caitlin Clark is finally on the national team. Angel Reese, Paige Beckers, Sonia Crichton, and how do you pronounce Kiki's last name, Danny?
Area Finn.
All right. So they finally got the kids on there. And now we've got the vets like Kelsey Plum, Georgia Watch, Jackie Young's on there, Chelsea Gray, Kalia Cooper. You've got Carol Lawson coaching Robert, but then she has to leave to go coach Duke. But whatever. So I'm going to let Robert close us out with that. We finally got the team that we probably should have had before. They're going to start playing soon. Are we moving forward finally, or what do you think?
I'm interested. I mean, what should be interesting to see is, okay, you've got this new group coming in. How are Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese going to play together? What does that look like? And what does it look like when you have those 3 on the floor with some of the other veterans? And that's really what this week is for. They're not going to lose a game. I don't think they're even going to have any close games. But what it does allow them to do is it allows them to figure out, okay, what kind of, what do we have a system? What kind of system can we run? Not that these players aren't already exceptionally skilled, but where are we going to put them? What are we going to do that's going to maximize our offensive efficiency, maximize our ability to be successful, right?
So that might be the only women's basketball in terms of professional that we see if things don't work out. So thank you for that, Robert. So on behalf of our cavalcade of stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches Podcast, the global authority on coaching leadership, where coaching wisdom meets real talk. Also seen on the Cascade Sports Network. You can follow us on the X platform at Odd Coaches. And for more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit us on the web at www.cksaveproject.com. Until next time, take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches Podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the Odd Coaches Podcast on the X platform at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Keith Adams and the CKA Save Project on social media at CKA Save Project. For more information about the CKA Save Project, visit them on the web at www.cksaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.